So, to kick-start the conference, allow me to introduce the BBC technology correspondent, Rory Cellan-Jones, who will be moderating our first session this morning. Rory has been a reporter for the BBC for more than 2 decades, covering business and technology stories for much of that time. His on-screen career began as a reporter for Wales Today in Cardiff, before moving to London for a reporter as Breakfast Time. At the beginning of 2007, he was appointed technology correspondent with a brief to expand the BBC's coverage on the impact of internet on business and society. He also blogs regularly on .rory, the BBC popular technology blog, recently named as one of the Sunday Times Top 100 blogs. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Rory to the stage, and ladies and gentlemen, let TVC 2011 commence.
Thank you for that great introduction. Preparation is vital for these occasions, so I've scribbled page notes on the train. And I'm remembering the last time I was in this venerable institution, the Cambridge Union. I was here as a student, would never ever dare speak. But I came back 2 or 3 years ago to take part in a debate which is somehow pertinent to what we're talking about today. It was a debate with a group of Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, a group that comes over each year, and it was Silicon Valley comes to Cambridge. They go to another place too, a less well-known place down the road in Oxford, and they were taking on the might of Cambridge in the debate about where was going to be the next place for great startups. Was it going to be Silicon Valley, or was it going to be Europe? A fairly unlikely and an unlikely motion, because you'd have thought the result was a foregone conclusion. And ranked against us on the European side were, as I say, some of the giants of Silicon Valley. On our side were some of the giants of Cambridge, people like Herman Hauser. And we, amazingly enough, ended up winning. And I put this all down to my efforts, I have to say, because I got up and basically played it for laughs and took on one of the most imposing figures on the other side, a guy called Reid Hoffman. And I described his product as Facebook for losers. And that seemed to go down quite well. And we ended up winning, and this ridiculous motion that that Europe was going to be a better place to start companies than Silicon Valley over the next few years ended up being won by acclaim. Well, Reid Hoffman, of course, is a very nice chap, and I don't know if any of you belong to LinkedIn. Anybody belong to LinkedIn here? I still think it's Facebook for losers. Yeah, a friend told me a few years ago, a friend from the advertising industry, don't join LinkedIn. It's the surest sign that you're about to be made redundant. That's what it says to me. Anyway, he's certainly had the last laugh because he's just had a very successful IPO, and Reid is also an early investor in Facebook, so I think he can afford to lose a few debates at the Cambridge Union. I was just reflecting. The theme here is the ideas economy, I think, for today. I was reflecting that I actually graduated from this place almost 30 years ago to the day. And when I left in 1981 with a degree in modern and medieval languages, I'll speak a bit of medieval French later if you want me. The one thing I would have considered completely outlandish would have been to start a company. My main aim in life was not to become an accountant like every other Cambridge graduate around me at the time, and I did succeed in that, but all around me people were graduating, and nearly all of them going to work for big corporations or media organisations as I did. Hardly anybody talked about starting their own business. And I think what's interesting is how that culture has gradually changed over the last 30 years. We've always had an enormous number of ideas coming out of this place, coming out of the wider economy in the UK and across Europe, but translating those ideas into the kind of startups that we see coming out of Silicon Valley certainly didn't look very easy 30 years ago, and perhaps getting a little easier now. So if we spool forward to 1991, I came back here to make a program for the Money Programme about something called the Cambridge phenomenon, which we were told was a sudden flowering of high-tech companies springing out of this place, particularly from the science park. And we looked, and we couldn't find it. We couldn't find these great success stories. And somebody told us around then, well, what Cambridge needs and what the UK economy generally needs is a few billion-dollar companies to act as an inspiration for others. Well, luckily, over the 90s, those companies did begin to spring up. So we had the likes of Arm, Autonomy, Cambridge Silicon Radio being born around this area. And if we then spool forward another 10 years to the dot-com bubble, sort of pretty short in Britain, 99 to 2000 really, about 18 months. A lot of people thought that was a negative phenomenon, but actually I took a look at it at the time, and what impressed me was the birth of institutions like we've got here. Students, people in their 20s, suddenly beginning to think, I'm interested in this stuff. Engineering, technology are not kind of geeky, separate things. There is a direct link to the economy. I can do this. I don't have to work for a giant bank. I can do it myself. And I saw lots of people who started lots of businesses, most of which failed in the dot-com bubble, 99 to 2001. If we spool forward again, a lot of those people are coming back now. We're having perhaps another bubble. We look around, I've just been reading in the Financial Times this morning on the way here an article about Groupon, which is itself heading for its IPO and looks ridiculously overhyped and overpriced and still lacking in a business model. But we are seeing, despite those excesses, once again, people coming up with brave ideas, disruptive ideas that could provide the giants of the future, and not just in Silicon Valley, but here in Cambridge, across the UK, and across Europe in general. Because I think we've got to see ourselves within the context of the European economy rather than be too local about this. If I look back just over the last couple of weeks, the companies I've visited, the companies I've talked to and seen, they've ranged from the tiny to the old giants. So, TVC2011, a tiny startup with nothing more than a way to give people access to their social networking activities, started by a software developer in London, Ian Dodsworth. He sold that to a figure to Twitter itself for a figure of around $30 million just last week. Moshi Monsters. Anyone heard of Moshi Monsters? another fascinating startup, started by a guy called Michael Smith, who 10 years ago, the last dot-com bubble, was one of those kids who came out of school actually and said, I don't want to work for a big business, I want to start something on my own. Started a company called Firebox in his garage. That took off, but nearly died, very nearly died. He survived, kept going as the bubble crashed around him, had persistence and has left that business and started a new business, which again, a couple of years ago looked like it was going to crash and burn. It's now one of the most successful small gaming businesses around the world. There's a fantastic metric I saw the other day about Moshi Monsters. It said 1 in 12 6 to 12-year-olds in the UK now owns a monster. With that kind of metric, that business might well be going places. And then there are companies like Spotify, again, sort of more pan-European, challenging existing business models, having the courage to take on the giants of both the old music world and the new music world, and hopefully surviving and making Europe a better place in general for startups. And right at the other end of the scale, I was at IBM the other day, and in Hursley in Hampshire, where they have a huge research centre. And there's a company that shows the power of ideas to continue building successful businesses. I mean, a company which has completely transformed itself from a hardware business into a very software and services-based business, with a lot of UK-based scientists contributing to those ideas, using sensors, tying them together with software, looking to a future where we have an internet of objects all tied together by software. And then finally, coming right back to home, the other major technology company I've had dealings with is Autonomy, which just last week was promoting a platform for augmented reality. Here, another idea coming out of Cambridge, really. I'm just going to see if I can make this work. Never do live demos. So, who knows about augmented reality? The idea that you can take a mobile phone and put other information on that phone. What this latest app that Autonomy has developed does is recognise pictures, uses its very powerful commercial search software to develop a database of pictures which are then linked to other things. It does image recognition. And I've just done this with Ted's business card here. Now you can't see this, but I'm going to show it to the president here, and she will describe it to the rest of us. So here's a simple business card. It's Ted Shelton's business card, and what's happening? His face appears on the business card.
Yes, just as you've taken a picture right there.
Yeah, I took that picture. So whenever I pull out Ted's business card and think, what did Ted look like? I will now know. Fantastic. Whether this has any use, whatsoever, I'm not entirely clear. I did a piece on this technology last week, and we had a technology blogger say, am I really going to be walking around the world holding up my phone to the world and seeing it through the lens of my phone? I don't think so. But Autonomy is offering that platform, augmented reality platform, to anyone to go away and turn it into something else. It's a classic example of this ideas economy we're talking about. And all of those companies, small and large, the TweetDecks, the Moshi Monsters, the Spotify, the Autonomies, seem to have this idea in common, that they are desperately trying to use new ideas. They're looking globally rather than locally. They're opening up. They're open to collaboration with other businesses, collaboration with the outside world. They're outward looking. And I think that's going to be one of the themes of the day.